You find a photo of yourself you never took. Different clothes, different city, same face, same scar above the left eyebrow. You've never been to Portland. The photo is dated 3 weeks ago. The man in it is smiling. You don't smile like that. You used to. Your mother calls before you can call her. She sounds like she's been crying for days. She says, "He found the files. He knows." You ask her what files. She hangs up. You count the seconds before your hand starts shaking. 4. Always 4. This started with a DNA test, the kind you do for fun. Ancestry, ethnicity percentages. Something to talk about at dinner. You spat it in a tube and mailed it in and forgot about it. 6 weeks later, a match. 99.98% shared DNA. Not a parent, not a sibling. The app said identical twin. The profile name was Daniel_M_1987. Your name is Daniel. You were born in 1987. You laughed. You actually laughed. You thought it was a glitch. You thought someone was pranking you. You thought a lot of things in that first minute that you stopped thinking very quickly. His profile had one photo, a selfie, taken in a bathroom. The mirror had a crack shaped like a question mark running from the top left corner all the way down. You have that crack. You've always had that crack. You messaged him, "Is this real?" He replied in 11 seconds. "I've been waiting for you to find me. It took longer than I expected. You're not very curious, are you?" You asked him where he lived. He said, "Close." You asked him what that meant. He said, "Closer than you're comfortable with, but not as close as I'm going to be." You told yourself it was a catfish, someone with your face pulled from social media, a fake profile, a sick joke. You told yourself this for 3 days. Then you started reading, not about twins, about surveillance, about how much of a person's life is visible without them knowing. You found forums, people describing exactly what you were feeling, the sense of being known too well. Objects moved, conversations that somehow reached the wrong people. Someone in one of those forums said something that stopped you cold. They said, "Before you confront anyone, sweep your space with pinhole cameras, RF transmitters, the kind that hide inside objects you touch every day." They said, "You would be surprised how often the feeling of being watched is not paranoia. It is accurate perception without enough information." You ordered an RF signal detector that night, the kind that finds hidden cameras even when they are not transmitting, even when they are completely invisible to the eye. It arrives the next morning. You run it through your apartment before you do anything else. Not because you think you will find something, but because you need to know the room you are standing in is actually yours. The detector finds something behind your bathroom mirror in 4 minutes. A pinhole camera, angled at the space in front of the sink, at the place where you stand every morning and every night and think no one is watching. You sit on the bathroom floor for 11 minutes. You count. You always count. And then the package arrives. A manila envelope. No return address. Inside, a birth certificate. Your hospital. Your birth date. Your mother's name. But a different name in the infant field. Marcus Allen Webb. And a note. "She named me too. She just didn't keep me." You confronted your mother. She sat at the kitchen table and didn't deny it. Didn't explain it either. She just kept folding and unfolding the same dish towel until you took it out of her hands. Here's what she told you. You were twins, born 6 weeks early. One of you was healthy. The other was smaller, weaker. The hospital said he might not survive the first month. A couple was there. waiting for an adoption that had fallen through. Young, desperate. Your mother was 19 and alone and terrified. She said she made a decision. She said she thought she was saving him, giving him a better chance. She said she never thought he'd survive, and when he did, she told herself it was better this way. She said a lot of things. None of them were apologies. You told yourself you understood. You told yourself it was a different time. You told yourself your mother was young and scared and doing the best she could. You told yourself that right up until you went back to your apartment and ran the detector through every room. Methodical, slow, one room at a time. You found 2 more cameras. One in the bedroom smoke detector, one inside the living room clock, both pinhole, both angled at the spaces where you spend the most time. Whoever placed these knew your apartment, knew your habits, knew exactly where you would never think to look. And they had been watching you for a long time before Marcus ever sent that first message. You called the police. They asked if you had proof of who placed them. You said no. They said bring the cameras in and file a report. You said what happens after that. They said someone will follow up. You asked when. They didn't answer. You already knew the answer. You went home and kept the detector running. He'd been watching you, not just online, inside your home, your social media, your location check-ins, your gym schedule, your LinkedIn. The camera in your bathroom had been there long enough to watch you build your entire daily routine without knowing you had an audience. He knew your life better than you did because he had been sitting inside it. You found a Reddit account, posted in a twins forum, username Daniel_was_kept. 18 months of posts, detailed, specific. Photos of your apartment building, photos of your car, photos of you from across the street, from behind, from angles that required planning. The last post was 2 days ago. It said, I've decided, if they won't give me what's mine, I'll take what's his. Same face, same voice, same blood. How hard can it be to become someone who already looks exactly like you? Your boss called the next morning, said you'd missed the Monday meeting. You hadn't missed it. You were there. You presented the quarterly report. You shook hands with 3 clients. You remember all of it. Your boss said the man who came in Monday was off, distracted, kept touching his face, kept counting things under his breath. She'd assumed you were sick. She said, are you feeling better? You said yes. You lied. You went to your office. Your desk had been reorganized. Everything 2 inches to the left. Your coffee mug, the one with the chip in the handle, was gone. A new one in its place. Identical. No chip. You ran the detector across your office before you touched anything else. 2 signals, one in the clock on the wall, one in the USB charger by the bookshelf that you did not remember buying. Your computer had new login times. Monday, 8:47 a.m. to 6:23 p.m. 9 hours and 36 minutes of someone being you, someone learning you, someone practicing you like a role they were about to take on stage, while cameras watched, while recordings ran, while he built a manual from the raw footage of your actual life. You checked your email. He'd replied to 7 of your threats perfectly. Your tone, your sign off, your habit of putting a period after your name in signatures. One detail wrong, he signed one email, Dan. You never go by Dan. Your mother never called you Dan. That single wrong loop in the letter, that is the only seam that didn't hold. You went home, you ran the detector through every room again. That time now, you were getting faster. You knew what the signal bar looks like when it found something real versus background frequency. You knew the difference between a clean room and a room that only felt clean. That knowledge had taken you 4 days to build. It should have taken you years to need. At 2 a.m., your phone rang. Unknown number, you answered because you were past the point of making smart decisions. The voice on the other end was yours, not similar, not close, yours. Same cadence, same slight hesitation before the letter H. He said, I sat in your chair today, I drank your coffee, I talked to your colleagues, and I need you to know, nobody noticed, not one person. That should scare you more than I do. You asked him what he wanted. He said, I want to know what it felt like to be the one she kept, to grow up with a mother who looked at you and didn't see her mistake. You didn't have an answer. You still don't. Because the truth is, you didn't know. You'd never thought about it. You'd been kept, and you'd never once stopped to feel grateful. And that silence on the phone lasted 11 seconds, and it said everything. He said, I'm not going to hurt you. I want you to understand that I'm just going to keep getting better at being you until one day you won't be able to prove the difference, and then we'll see who she keeps. You hung up. You sat in the dark. You held the detector in your lap. You counted the reasons you had to feel safe. You got to 3 and stopped because 3 was all you had. And one of them was a device that fits in your palm that had already found 7 cameras in 4 days and was the only thing in your life right now that was telling you the truth about the room you were sitting in. You hired a private investigator. She found Marcos in 4 days. Your phone buzzes at 11 p.m. One photo, you zoom in. His apartment walls fill your screen and you stop breathing for a moment because what you are looking at is not a scary movie. It is a study, timelines, schedules, diagrams of every person in your life, color-coded, annotated, patient. The handwriting is yours, or close enough that your thumb hovers over the screen trying to remember when you wrote this. You didn't. You never did. You zoom in further. Your name in the center of the largest diagram. Lines radiating outward to every person you know. Your boss, your 2 closest friends, the woman at the gym you say hello to on Tuesdays, all of them connected to you by lines that Marcos drew in your handwriting in an apartment 20 minutes away. He had mapped every relationship you had. He had found the edges of your world and drawn them in ink before he ever sent you a single message. There was a section on your voice. The investigator sent a second photo, a laptop screen, 2 waveforms side by side, identical. You stare at them for a long time before you understand what you are looking at. Yours on the left, his on the right. 200 hours of your Zoom calls fed into software that learned the shape of your speech, the rhythm of your pauses, the specific frequency of your hesitation. He had your voice down to the waveform. He had been practicing in a room full of your own recordings until the 2 lines were indistinguishable. You asked the investigator how long the cameras had been there. She sent them to a tech analyst. The result came back the next morning. The bathroom camera was 14 months old. You open your phone. You go to your photos. You scroll back 14 months. You are smiling in those photos. You look like a person who lives alone in an apartment that belongs to them. You look like someone who has no idea. The camera had been placed inside your home within 30 days of you signing the lease, before the DNA test, before any message, before any of these had a name. You go to the bathroom, you stand in front of the mirror the way you have stood in front of it 14 months of mornings. Then you think about the angle the camera was positioned at, behind the mirror, looking out at you. You have been the subject of that shot every single day, and you never knew you were in frame. You step to the left. You think about what the camera could see from there. You step to the right. You count the mornings. 427. Always 427. Every one of them watched. Your friends started acting strange. A trip apparently planned for September you knew nothing about. A nickname, the Weeb. Nobody would explain. You look at a group photo from 3 weeks ago on your phone. Everyone looking at the camera. You zoom in on your own face. The smile is right. The eyes are right. But something underneath it is slightly practiced, slightly performed. You zoom out. You look at the whole photo. You cannot tell anymore which version of you was there that night, and neither can they. You started carrying the detector everywhere. You have a specific memory now of every room you have walked into in the past 2 weeks. Office, car, coffee shop, your mother's kitchen. The detector in your hand, the signal bar rising and falling. Most rooms come back clean. The ones that you don't remember, with a precision that feels almost physical. The office clock, the USB charger, the bathroom mirror. 7 cameras total across 3 locations. 7 places where you thought you were alone, 7 places where you weren't. You drove to your mother's house. You ran the detector through her kitchen first. Clean. Living room, clean. Hallway. The signal bar climbed before you even pointed it at anything specific. You turned slowly. The detector led you to the wall, to the photo frame, the one with your school photo inside it. You at 11 years old, smiling. Gap in your front teeth. You have been 11 years old on that wall your entire adult life, and behind your 11-year-old face, someone had placed a camera, and your mother had walked past it every day and smiled at you and never known she was also smiling at a lens. Your mother opened the door. She looked at you the way she used to look at you when you were small and had done something she couldn't explain. You looked at her. You looked at the frame on the wall behind her, your 11-year-old face, the gap in your teeth, the camera behind it that she didn't know about. You made a decision in that hallway. You needed to know how much she knew before you decided how much to tell her. So you said nothing about the frame. You followed her to the kitchen. You sat down, you listened. She said he sat at her table and drank her tea and asked her why. She said she tried to explain. She said he listened the way you never quite managed to listen, completely, without preparing your response. She said at the end he took her hand and said, "I forgive you." And she cried. She cried in a way she had never cried with you in 36 years of being your mother. And when you asked her how that made her feel, she looked away. Just her eyes moving away from yours. You watched them go and you held that moment for a long time because it told you something the cameras and the waveforms and the diagrams never could. He had not just copied your face, he had found the spaces in your relationship with her that you had left unattended, and he had walked into every single one of them, and she had let him in. You went to confront him in his apartment. You knocked. He opened the door and you were looking at yourself. Not a mirror, not a photo. Yourself, standing, breathing, blinking. He was wearing your jacket, the grey one with the broken zipper, pull you'd never gotten fixed. You had the detector in your jacket pocket. You clicked it on before he finished opening the door. 3 signals immediately. He had cameras in his own hallway, watching his own front door, watching himself become you. He said, "Come in." You didn't move. He said, "You want to see it, don't you? What I've built." You did. You hated that you did. You stepped inside. You kept the detector running in your pocket. You counted the signals as you walked through his apartment. 7. Always 7. One for every room. He had been watching himself practice being you as carefully as he had been watching you be you. The walls, the timelines, the diagrams. Up close it was worse. There was a section you hadn't seen in the photos, labeled Becoming, a checklist. Most items checked off. Near the bottom, 2 items left unchecked. The first, mother. The second, the choice. He sat across from you. Same posture, same way of holding his hands when he's thinking. You don't know if he learned it from watching you or if it's just the DNA talking. That distinction felt important. You couldn't work out why. He said, I don't want to destroy you. I want you to understand that. I want you to live. New city, new name, new life. Walk away from this one and I stop. I become you here and you become someone else somewhere else, and we both get a life. You asked what's happened if you said no. He said, then I keep going and eventually there won't be enough of a difference for anyone to choose, and I'll stop choosing to be civil. Here's what nobody tells you about a moment like that. You don't feel angry. You don't feel brave. You feel something much smaller and much worse. You feel like you might understand him. And that understanding felt like the most dangerous thing in the room. More dangerous than the cameras. More dangerous than the checklist. More dangerous than sitting across from your own face, wearing your own jacket, asking you to disappear because he was right. She kept you, not because you were better, not because you deserved it more, because you were healthy and he wasn't, and she was 19 and scared, and she made a choice that she never had to answer for because he wasn't supposed to survive, but he did. He survived and he built himself from nothing while you were handed a name, a mother, a history. And now he was sitting across from you asking you to give back something you never knew you'd taken. You sat there for a long time. You counted the items on his checklist. 32, always 32. You counted them again, just to be sure. The detector was still running in your pocket, still reading 7 signals, still telling you the truth about the room you were sitting in. You thought about the bathroom camera, 14 months. You thought about your school photo at your mother's house. You thought about the frame on the wall that she walked past every day, and then you made a decision. Not the brave one, not the one that makes sense in the daylight, the one that fell true at 6 p.m. in an apartment covered in diagrams of your own life, sitting across from the only person in the world who understood exactly how much it cost to be you, because he had been paying that cost from the outside for 36 years. You said, I'll think about it. He said, you have until Thursday. You said, why Thursday? He said, because that's when I have dinner with mom, and I'd like to know whether I'm telling her you're gone or whether I'm telling her you couldn't let go. You left. You drove home. You sat in your car for 40 minutes outside your building. You watched your own window, light on, shadow moving behind the curtain. You hadn't left a light on. You live alone. You took the detector out of your pocket. You pointed it at your building. 4 signals from your floor. He had been back inside while you were at his apartment. He had added cameras while you were sitting across from him, counting his checklist. That was the variable he had planned around. Your curiosity, your need to see what he had built. He had used it to get you out of your own home. You didn't go back inside that night. You drove to a hotel. Cash. Different name at the desk. You sat on the bed with the detector running and you thought about Thursday. You thought about what you knew and what he didn't know you knew. He didn't know about the detector. He didn't know you had found every camera. He didn't know you had been running signals through every room he had ever been in. He thought he was watching you. He didn't know you had learned to watch back. Thursday came. You didn't leave. You didn't run. You went to your mother's house at 6 p.m. and you removed the camera from behind the photo frame before she came home. You placed the detector on the kitchen table. Visible. Turned on. Signal lights. Active. You made tea. You sat down. You waited. He arrived at 6:30. He knocked. Your mother let him in. He walked into the kitchen and stopped when he saw the detector on the table. That pause. 1 second. The recalculation happening behind your face, on his face. He looked at the detector. He looked at you. And he understood that the version of you he had planned around no longer existed. The three of you sat at the table. Nobody spoke for a long time. Then he poured himself tea. Your mug, the one without the chip. He slid the one with the chip across the table to you. He knew. He'd always known which one was yours, but his hand was not steady when he did it. That was new. That was the detector on the table doing its work without saying a word. Your mother looked at him and said, "You have his father's hands." She'd never told you that. In 36 years, she had never once described your father's hands. She said it to him in 11 seconds over tea. He didn't look at her when she said it. He looked at you, and his expression wasn't triumphant. It wasn't cruel. It was something much harder to sit across from. It was relieved, like a man who had been holding his breath for 36 years and had finally been allowed to exhale. You put the detector in the center of the table. You said, "I found 32 cameras in my apartment, in my office, in my car, in this kitchen, behind the photo frame, in the hallway." You looked at your mother. "The one with my school photo, the one that's been there since I was 11. She looked at the frame. She looked at Marcos. She looked at you. And for the first time in this whole situation, she didn't look away. Marcos was quiet for a long time. Then he said something you weren't expecting. He said, "I know." You said, "You know I found them." He said, "I know it was too much. I knew it when I was doing it. I couldn't stop. It was the only way I knew how to be close to something that was supposed to be mine." You sat with that. You counted the seconds. 11. Always 11. You left before dessert. You drove home. You went inside with the detector in your hand. You swept every room one final time. The 4 cameras he had added while you were at his apartment were gone. He had removed them before Thursday. That was also part of the decision he had made sitting across from you. The detector came back clean. Every room, 7 rooms, all clean. For the first time in 14 months, the place you lived in was actually yours. He messages you every Thursday now. Normal things. Weather, a restaurant he tried, a book he is reading, your book from your shelf. You noticed it was gone 2 weeks ago. He is not threatening, he is not demanding, he is just present. The way family is present when family is something you are still learning the shape of. Your mother calls him on Sundays. You know because she told you. She said, "I hope that's okay." You said yes. You don't know if you meant it. You don't know if the yes came from you or from some part of you that has been quietly, slowly learning to make room for a grief that was never yours to carry, but somehow ended up in your hands anyway. Last week you found a checklist, not the one on his wall, a new one, slipped under your door. Same handwriting, but the two unchecked items, murder and the choice, both checked now, and at the bottom in different ink, a new item added. Brother, unchecked. You held the detector over it, out of habit, out of the reflex that 14 months of invisible surveillance had built into you permanently. The detector came back clean. Just paper, just ink, just a word waiting to find out what it means. Here is the part I need you to sit with before you scroll. The detector found the first camera in 4 minutes. 4 minutes! I had lived in that apartment for 15 months. I had stood in front of that bathroom mirror 15 months of mornings and thought I was alone. The camera had been there since month 1. Everything I thought was private was documented. Everything I thought was mine was shared. I am not telling you this to frighten you. I am telling you this because I spent 3 weeks feeling like something was wrong before I finally found a tool that could tell me whether I was right. Not instinct, not suspicion, signal data, frequency, something that doesn't lie and doesn't need to be convinced. I needed something that worked when my own eyes couldn't. If you are in that place right now, that specific feeling of a room that doesn't feel fully yours, I left what I used in the description, not as advice, just as the thing that gave me back the 11 minutes that changed everything. Drop in the comments right now, if you found a hidden camera in your home today, what would you do first? Would you remove it immediately? Leave it running and feed it false information? Call the police and wait? Tell me, because I got it wrong the first time and I want to know if you would have done better. And subscribe, because the next person in my inbox has a situation that started the same way this one did, with a feeling they talked themselves out of, and a room they should have swept 11 months earlier. One last thing, the grey jacket, the one he was wearing when I went to his apartment. I found it this morning, folded on my doorstep, zipper pull fixed, clean, pressed, a note pinned to the lapel. You left this at Mom's. M. I don't remember leaving it there, but my mother says I was wearing it when I arrived, and Marco says he never touched it. I ran the detector over it before I brought it inside. Clean, no signal, just a jacket, just a note, just a brother I don't know how to have yet, learning the same thing I am. How to be in the same story without taking up each other's space. The detector sits on my kitchen table every morning. I run it through every room before I start my day. 7 rooms, always 7. And every morning all 7 come back clean. And every morning that feels like enough. I still don't know which one of us is walking away, but for the first time in 14 months, I know the room I am standing in is mine. And that is the only ending I was ever going to get that I could actually live with.